So, Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Gita Sandesh program. Today we will cover chapter number 4, which is titled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. But before we do that, let's do a quick summary of chapter 3, which was Karma Yoga. In Karma Yoga, Krishna is talking about the duties and responsibilities, both on the bodily platform as well as on the spiritual platform. So, chapter 3 begins with Arjuna asking a fundamental question because Krishna apparently seemed to have suggested, Arjuna, either you meditate or you fight. So Arjuna is asking, if you want me to meditate, then why are you asking me to fight? Why can't I use my intellect, my buddhi, to decide for myself what's the right thing to do? In summary, in chapter 3, Krishna is saying, I didn't say it was an option between the two. What I said is that you are not ready to practice Jnana Yoga. In my estimation, Arjuna, you should focus on Karma Yoga, specifically Nishkama Karma Yoga, which is the actually Krishna says that Nishkama Karma Yoga is even better than Jnana Yoga. Actually, Jnana Yoga is one rung higher than Nishkama Karma Yoga. But we'll come to the yoga ladder again today in our chapter. So what is Krishna saying? Meditate while you fight. The question is not, should I meditate or should I fight? The answer Krishna is giving is, meditate while you fight. Which means, keep in mind that your responsibility is to please me. So if you're convinced that your responsibility and your duty is to please me as a Supreme Lord, then while meditating on me, you will fight. You will still do your duty. Two things, right? Arjuna is a Kshatriya, he is a Grihastha. So from both sides, he has responsibilities. So from the Varna side and the Ashrama side. So the question never was, is there an option between fighting and meditating? The only option is to meditate while fighting. So in that context, we talked about Falgu Vairagya and Yukta Vairagya. And we understood that Falgu Vairagya is external renunciation. So let us say, for example, somebody has taken on a saffron robe. Strangely, I'm wearing saffron today, but I'm not a sannyasi. So let us say somebody has taken on a saffron robe. To the external world, they have renounced their family. Because taking on a saffron robe means you've given up your family and you're leading a very austere life. But let's say a beautiful woman passes by. So externally to the rest of the world, here is a person who is a very pious person. But internally, what if he is disturbed by seeing that beautiful woman? Then is he really a renounced person? He's not. So renunciation is not external. It is internal. It is meant to be internal. So how do we understand what is the difference between our own renunciations? When do we engage in Falgu Vairagya and what is actually Yukta Vairagya? For example, let us say I'm reading about the Bhagavad Gita, I'm reading the scriptures, and I'm told, that devices can distract me from Krishna. So the question is, should I reject all devices and only focus on scriptures? Because that would certainly please Krishna. But what if I use my intelligence to use those devices to serve Krishna? So let us say whether it is a mobile device or whatever it is, a laptop, a car, my creativity. What if I use my talent along with all of the technical know-how that is available in this modern world to somehow bring Krishna into other people's lives? That is Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means you use your intelligence to figure out how best you can serve Krishna given whatever circumstances and your own talent and the availability of resources that you have. You know, in the olden days, the sannyasis had a vow that they would not cross the ocean. And then suddenly, a great acharya comes along, uses the aircraft or the ship to cross the ocean, and travels all over the world to bring Krishna to the general masses. So something changed. Srila Prabhupada also, after taking sannyas, crossed the Indian Ocean and went all the way to the US at the ripe old age of 69. Uh, the word Parivrajakacarya means someone who travels all the time. So a sannyasi's main job is to travel and preach to everybody. They try to reach out to as many souls as possible. We do have some sannyasis who take a vow where they take a vow which is called the Kshetra sannyas, which means they take a vow not to leave a particular place. We have some holy people living in Vrindavan who have taken a vow after they became sannyasi that they will never, ever, ever leave Vrindavan, no matter what happens. I was watching a short video where, devotees from ISKCON Mayapur had gone to Vrindavan to invite one of the other Vaishnava Sampradayas in Vrindavan to come and honor the opening of TOVP. And that particular exalted personality said, I would love to come, but I've taken Kshetra Sannyas, so I cannot leave Vrindavan. But my prayers and blessings are there for ISKCON's success in opening the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium in Mayapur. So, like that, you have sannyasis who take Kshetra sannyas, but generally a sannyasi is meant to travel. He has given up his family to adopt a much larger family. He wants to expand um, the radius of his influence to include as many souls as possible to be reintroduced to Krishna. So, Falgu Vairagya is false renunciation, which means externally you may have renounced something, but internally your mind is still churning with desires. So Krishna says, so essentially external renunciation is artificial. What do you say in Hindi? Naam ke vaste, I guess. But internal renunciation is more sincere. So Krishna prefers that we don't prematurely renounce something that we're not ready for. And in this particular chapter, let me share my screen. When Krishna talks about great leaders, he gives an example of Janaka Maharaj. And then furthermore, he gives himself as an example and all the other great kings as well. And why is Krishna giving the example of Janaka Maharaj as one such self-realized person? Even though he's a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, still he governs his kingdom very well. He takes care of his kingdom. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is one shloka that talks about the 12 Mahajans who are all self-realized souls. Of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives the example of Janaka Maharaj, and also himself. Krishna says, well, actually, even I don't have any work to do, because self-realized people don't have any work to do. Work has to, remember, Krishna says in 3.6 or 3.9, I think, 3.9. Krishna says that all of us have to work, and work has to be performed as a sacrifice to please Lord Krishna. But if you're a self-realized person, you don't have any work left to do. Work is done to progress on the spiritual path. Sacrifices are done so you can make progress on the spiritual path. As we were discussing after class yesterday in the 18th chapter, Krishna talks about how every human being, regardless of varna, regardless of ashrama, so both the 4 varnas and the 4 ashramas have to do yajna, dana, and tapa. It must be done, Krishna says. That's my final opinion. It must be done. And it should never be stopped, Krishna says. So each one of us have to do yajna, some kind of sacrifice. And we said yajna does not mean just fire sacrifice. There are other types of sacrifices. For example, when we do Sankirtan in the temple and everybody sings, at the end of the Sankirtan we say Harinam Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai. So chanting the holy names of the Lord is also a sacrifice. So there are a lot of fireless sacrifices that are appropriate for different ages. And as we were discussing yesterday, chanting the holy names of the Lord is the foremost kind of sacrifice in Kali Yuga, which is why our institution prioritizes chanting of the holy names. One is, that's the Yuga Dharma as per Srimad Bhagavatam, and as per many other scriptures and Puranas. 2, because in Kali Yuga, that's the easiest way for you to escape this prison house. So Krishna has said work has to be done as a sacrifice, because if you don't work for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, then you're accumulating a lot of karma. So for great souls like Janaka Maharaj, why should they work? Because they are already fully self-realized. They don't have to work. But they still work to set an example for others. In the sense that when you're in a position of leadership, you cannot shirk or avoid your responsibility. So there are 12 such Mahajans mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One of them is Janaka Maharaj. The others are Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narada Muni, the 4 Sanat Kumaras, Bali Maharaj, Prahalad Maharaj, Kapila Muni, Yama Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, Swayambhu Manu. They are all mentioned specifically as Mahajanas. So Krishna is saying, you take your choice. You select any one Mahajan and follow in their footsteps. How did they live their lives? Bhishma Dev as well. How did they live their lives? You could take that as an example of how you should conduct your life. Of course, Krishna has given himself as an example. So we have to work to please Krishna or Vishnu. It has to be done. We don't have a choice. Hence, Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you are not ready to take sannyas. Therefore, my suggestion is that since you have specifically stated that I don't care for this kingdom, I don't care for victory. Well, since you're not attached to the results, the most ideal kind of yoga that you can perform is Nishkama Karma Yoga. In that yoga ladder, Karma Kanda means you are following the scriptures to fulfill your material desires. That's Karma Kanda. Which means you're not violating any laws of the Lord. You are strictly following the scriptures, but for the purposes of getting some benefits in return. But karma yoga is performed because you want to avoid karmic reactions. So in Sakama Karma Yoga, you are attached to your duty, but you're also attached to the results. That means you are interested in only performing pious activities. In Nishkama Karma Yoga, you are very conscious of karmic reactions, and therefore you want to avoid both papa and punya. Therefore, in Nishkama Karma Yoga, you are attached to your duty, but you reject the results. In the sense you sacrifice the results for Krishna. So then you may ask, what's the difference between the Nishkama Karma Yogi and a person who is a bhakta, a devotee? There is a very thin line of a difference between the two. Both of them are attached to their work. Both of them are detached from results. Both of them are doing it with full knowledge. But the Nishkama Karma Yogi is doing it to avoid karmic reactions. A bhakta is doing the same thing to please Krishna. So for a Nishkama Karma Yogi, pleasing the Lord is not part of their calculation. They want to do their duty and they want to avoid karmic reactions. Whereas a bhakta does not care about karmic reactions. The only thing the bhakta is thinking about is, how can I please my Lord? So the intent is the difference between the two, Nishkama Karma Yogi and a bhakta. So hence Krishna is advising Arjuna, why don't you practice Nishkama Karma Yoga? That will be ideal for you. Because you are not ready to do Jnana Yoga. Because to do Jnana Yoga, before you can do Jnana Yoga, you must already be purified. Whereas for Nishkama Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, you don't need purification upfront. The precondition to becoming a sannyasi is you must develop purity first. And that purity is developed through regulating of your senses, mind, and intelligence. Of course, others also can do the same. So you have to practice a lot of austerities to reach that level of purity before you can take sannyas. So sannyas means a lot of sacrifices. So there is one interesting shloka that we did not get to. Krishna talks about, yes, I want to talk about this. Why do we have to do all these sacrifices? Why do we have to do all these austerities? We have to do these austerities and sacrifices to maintain ourselves, to maintain the social order, and also to maintain cosmic order. Now, what's fascinating is that we are all interconnected. What I do affects you, what you do affects me. What I do affects the demigods, what you do or don't do also affects the demigods. So in a way, in this cosmos, we are all interdependent, although it may not be visible to you or obvious to you. But here is a proof of how we are interdependent. So in Shloka 9, Krishna is saying, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. And then Krishna is saying, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation, which means moksha was always part of the package. But in order to achieve this moksha, there are some minimum duties and responsibilities that we have to perform. If we want to live a happy life, Krishna is saying, I have designed this universe in such a way that I have created these demigods and I have created these men and all the other jivatmas. The men and demigods have to learn to love and support each other. If the men want rains on time, if they want good crops on time, if they want good weather on time, if they want seasons, then the men have to perform sacrifices to please the demigods. Because each of these demigods are responsible for different departments. There's one responsible for electricity, water, weather. You can name millions of departments that these demigods are responsible for. So there has to be a symbiotic relationship. If we perform our yajnas, the demigods will be satisfied with us, and in turn, they'll give us all the other nice things so that we can live happily. So you have to perform these austerities not only to maintain yourself for the benefit of other jivatmas, but also for the satisfaction of the jivatmas living in higher planetary systems. And what is Krishna saying? The demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So here Krishna is establishing the symbiotic interdependent relationships that we have, even with beings that we cannot see. Right? We've heard about the demigods, but we don't see them. But we experience the consequences of what they give us or don't give us. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by performance of yajna, will supply all necessities to you. So Krishna is saying this is a business transaction that's taking place. You have to give them something, they will give you something in return. You have to perform your yajnas very nicely, and the demigods will reciprocate with you very nicely. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So Krishna is saying, whatever you are being supplied is being supplied by higher power. So if you're simply utilizing all of this without acknowledging the relationship that we all have with demigods, then certainly we are thieves. And then Krishna gives a postscript, an exception in the next shloka. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. Krishna has not said that devotees of the Lord offer the food to the demigods. He's saying the devotees of the Lord know who they have to please. They have to please Krishna. So they will offer their bhoga to Krishna very nicely with a tulsi leaf in each one of the bhoga items. And then after the Lord has honored the bhoga, they will accept it as prasadam, sanctified food. Even other cultures pray over their food before they accept the food. Christians do that. Muslims do that. It's an acknowledgement that you have received the mercy of the Lord. But without the Lord's mercy, even food can be a problem for us. And Krishna is talking about this interdependence and the cycle of interdependence in the next two shlokas. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. How do rains come? When we perform yajna. Where does this concept of yajna coming from? From the concept of prescribed duties in the Vedic scriptures. So the Vedic scriptures has established for each of us prescribed duties. Those prescribed duties become yajnas. If the yajnas are done on time, properly, in the right mood, then it will produce rains. Rains will produce grains, and grains can help the human beings survive and lead a simple life. So Krishna talks about regulation again, just like as he did in chapter 2. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice, which means any sacrifice that we do, ultimately, even the sacrifices that you offer for the pleasure of the demigods, ultimately, who is accepting it? Lord Vishnu is accepting it. And Krishna is saying, my dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. So Krishna has used the word sin twice. He's called us a thief if we don't acknowledge that everything is being given to us by the mercy of Krishna. So then Krishna says, okay, if you're leading a materialistic life, then your entire life is in vain. So the purpose of human life is self-realization. And hence Krishna is saying, for a self-realized soul, there is no duty. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. So Krishna is emphasizing again that all of us have to perform our duties. We should act based on our duties. But then we should not be attached to whether we get what we want or not. So Krishna is saying we should work without attachment to results. This is Nishkama Karma, where one attains the Supreme. So now coming to the stark other difference between the Nishkama Karma Yogi and the person practicing bhakti. As we said, a Nishkama Karma Yogi rejects his results because if he gets attached to the results, he fears that he will go back into the cycle of karma. So he negates the results, and that is artificial negation. Whereas a person practicing bhakti yoga, whatever we do, we are going to get results. Good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. If we get good results, what will a bhakti yogi do? He will use his intelligence to figure out how to use those results back in the service of Krishna. That is why we said there is a very thin line between the Nishkama Karma Yogi and Bhakti Yogi. What is that thin line of difference? The intent to please Krishna. So if Krishna has given you a lot of intelligence, he expects you to use your intelligence in his service. If Krishna has given you a capability of being a fantastic cook, then become a cook for Krishna. If you're great at stitching clothes for Krishna, then you should use that talent for Krishna. So somehow or the other, Krishna expects you to use the talent and the intelligence that he himself has given you. How do you intelligently use it in his service is what he is looking for. That is Yukta Vairagya also. Is to use your intelligence to figure out how can I serve Krishna? How can I please Krishna? And here is the reference to Janaka Maharaj. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. And then Krishna includes himself. He says, "O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me. The Lord is Satchidananda. What does he need to do? He doesn't need to do anything. He says, I have no work here in the three planetary systems. Nor am I in want of anything. Nor have I a need to obtain anything. And yet I am engaged in prescribed duties." The Lord is saying, you know me as Bhagavan. Does Bhagavan have any job responsibilities? He's Swarat. He's fully independent. He's free to do whatever he wants. But Krishna is saying, I myself am setting an example as Bhagavan. I wake up in the morning, I meditate, I honor Brahmanas, I give in charity. I don't need to do all this because I'm Bhagavan. But when I come into the material world, I'm also going to demonstrate to you how you need to lead your life. And then Krishna says, what will happen if he doesn't do this? For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, what will happen? Certainly all men would follow my path. They would say, Bhagavan Sri Krishna himself didn't do any duties and responsibilities, why I should do? If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds will be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So Krishna is also explaining to Arjuna why he himself as Bhagavan is still acting like a mundane human being, performing his duties and responsibilities. So Krishna is saying even self-realized souls are busy with duties and responsibilities. Yeah, there are some self-realized souls who are cut off from humanity and are practicing austerities in the mountainous regions or deep into the forests. But an ideal self-realized soul is worried about the condition of humanity and will do what it takes to help humanity to come out of this trap of material world, right? So this is what Krishna is indicating here. So if we come to the chapter summary, and then we'll do a little few pastimes. The acronym was TREE, the difference between true renunciation and false renunciation, and how we should regulate everything, and how we should engage ourselves in exemplary conduct. And then Arjuna asks that question, which is, yeah, sometimes even exemplary leaders make mistakes. Why is that? And Krishna says that's because lust, which is born of Rajagun and becomes our eternal enemy, which means all of us are always carrying lust within us, even though we may be practicing sadhana. We are just a razor's edge away from falling back into our old degenerative habits. So Krishna is saying lust is a terrible enemy for us, and that is something that we have to be aware of. So I'd like to come to Shloka number 35. This is a Shloka which is repeated again in the last chapter, the 18th chapter, where Krishna talks about it is better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. So what is it that Arjuna wanted to do? He wanted to give up his Kshatriyahood and become a Brahmana sannyasi. But Krishna is saying, My preference is that if you've not prepared yourself for a different varna or an ashrama as per what the requirements are, my preference is that even though you may not be a great Kshatriya, you do that duty that comes naturally to you. So even if you get destroyed performing your duty imperfectly, it is better than performing your duty perfectly, because performing your duty perfect or some other varna or ashrama's duty perfectly, Krishna is saying, is dangerous. So what is the Brahmana's natural instinct? Is to learn and teach. So the Brahmana focuses on the inner world. A Kshatriya focuses on the outer world in the form of governance. Now, both the head and the arm are required. The Brahmana represents the head of Vishnu, and the Kshatriyas represent the arms of Vishnu. Both the administrative side and the good governance side or the intellectual side are necessary in society. Why is it important for Kshatriyas to make sure that the outer world is taken care of? Because if the outer world there is a lot of disturbances in the outer world in society, there will be no peace of mind for anybody to be ready to practice spirituality. Therefore, a Kshatriya's duty is to guard and protect dharma, because only if they provide good governance can the citizens peacefully practice spirituality. If the citizens are constantly disturbed by different elements in society or injustices or illegality or unethical or unethical conduct, then the citizens become fed up and tired. They cannot think about God. So a Brahmana focuses on the inner world, a Kshatriya focuses on the outer world in order to help citizens focus on the inner world. If you have to practice spirituality, there has to be some level of peace and calm in your life. If we are fighting for everything in society, then there's no peace in life for you to think about God, because you're always leading a life of anxiety. So Brahmanas focus on the intellect. Kshatriyas focus on people management. Brahmanas focus on thoughts and intellect. Kshatriyas focus on people. Vaishyas are supposed to focus on animal or non-human implements, etc. And the Shudra is only focused on serving others. So different varnas have different responsibilities and duties. And in today's chapter, you will discover that the varnas are not by birth. It is by your inclinations and your past desires and your current desires. So to the question, why do we fall down sometimes? Krishna says it's because of lust. Where is this lust hiding? This lust is hiding in our senses, mind, and intelligence. How do you guard against this or overcome this? By again regulating your senses, mind, and intelligence. These are the sitting places of lust, and you have to regulate. Everything begins by regulating the external, and ultimately your internal will also get regulated. So Krishna talks about how you can transcend this. So the chapter ends with, thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, the only way you and I can conquer lust is by your sadhana. The more consistent and honest you are in your sadhana, the greater your spiritual strength to avoid and overcome temptations. The temptations will always be there. Yeah. Now, the Lord has spoken about his devotee Janaka Maharaj. There's a pastime of Janaka Maharaj. But before that, let's also look at another pastime of Lord Hanuman. And in the context of karma, we will, in today's chapter, we'll look at a couple more pastimes as well. So one day a Brahmana approaches the Lord and he says, I have heard that you maintain a book with all your devotees' names in it. And the Lord says, yes, I do. And the Brahmana asks Lord Ram, can I see that book? Because obviously you're curious. Whose names are there in that book that Lord Ram must be maintaining of all of his devotees? So the Lord says, okay, why not? You can see the book. So the Lord opens the book and the Brahmana is flipping through the pages and pages and pages. He's just shocked. Hanumanji's name is not in that book. And he asks the Lord, how come your greatest devotee's name is not in this book? And the Lord says, I maintain another book where, I think about my devotees. And the Brahmana was very curious. He said, oh, I'd love to see the book where you are thinking about your devotees all the time. And Lord Ram said, yes, I can show you that book. He shows him the book and page after page after page after page after page. It's only Hanumanji's name. Nobody else's name is there. So what's the difference between the two books? In the first book, the devotees who are always trying to do their sincere best to think about the Lord and worship the Lord. In the second book, when the Lord is conquered by your love, he begins to think about you all the time. So this is how much the Lord loves his devotees. Devotees who are completely surrendered to him, the Lord is also always thinking about them. Let's begin chapter 4 and then we can talk about karma today, which I promised I will cover. So today's chapter is known as Transcendental Knowledge, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So before we begin, let's offer our humble obeisances to His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today, what is knowledge? In order to perform your duties and responsibilities, we need to have some knowledge. What's that knowledge? What's the proper way in which to approach this knowledge? What is karma, akarma, and vikarma? And what is surrender? Who surrenders and who does not surrender? Krishna will tell us that in this particular chapter. So today's acronym is EARS, E-A-R-S. E stands for eternal knowledge. A stands for accurate understanding. R is for reactions. And S is for surrender. So let's see how this particular chapter begins. So Krishna is continuing to speak. And then the questions will come from Arjuna. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivaswan. And Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. So this is a continuation from chapter 3, where the Lord concluded by saying, all of this knowledge is already present. Many great souls know this knowledge, but now Krishna is giving the lineage of where this knowledge has come from. So from Vivaswan to Manu, and Manu in turn instructs it to Ikshvaku. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. So this comes back to the question of saintly kings. They are called Raja Rishis. And one such king is Janaka Maharaj, who the Lord mentions in the previous chapter. So remember, we said the question is not whether you should meditate or whether you should fight. You should meditate while doing your duty. And the Kshatriya's duty is to fight. Sometimes one has to fight. So one day, a group of sages were discussing among themselves, we're all practicing Jnana Yoga for many, many years, and we understand how difficult it is. We're all living in the forest and single-mindedly practicing and trying to remember Vishnu. But we have so many struggles doing it. But our dear King Janaka Maharaj, he's known to be the greatest devotee of Lord Vishnu. How is he able to be a great devotee of Vishnu when he has so many responsibilities, so many burdens on his shoulder as a king? He has to make sure that everything is running perfectly in his kingdom. Where does he have the time to even think about Krishna? How come he finds the time to do devotional service? So they thought, let's go talk to King Janaka and find out what's the secret. And so the rishis approach Janaka Maharaj and they tell him, we are very curious. We are doing nothing but trying to meditate on Krishna and we find it a great difficulty. But you have so many duties and responsibilities, and you're deep into politics and maintaining good relations. In the midst of that, how is it that you are able to think of Krishna? So Janak Maharaj says, I'll answer your question. And they were all very eagerly waiting. But Janak Maharaj said, tomorrow, I want to invite all of you for a wonderful feast. Please come tomorrow. I will serve you all very nicely. And then we can discuss this question. So the next day, all the holy men had come to Janak Maharaj's palace. And he greeted them very nicely, washed their feet, gave them good seats to sit in, and was preparing to serve them prasadam personally. So he had seated all of them in a row. And he personally starts serving them prasadam. The rishis suddenly noticed something very weird. Above each one of their heads, there was a sword hanging by a very thin thread. It looks like any minute that sword could fall on any one of their heads. Now, they know that Janaka Maharaj is a great devotee of the Lord and he wouldn't do anything to harm them. But at the same time, they were compelled not to ask because it would be impolite to ask when you've been invited to the household and you're being served nice prasadam, but there is an impending danger on top of your head. So they all hurried up and finished their prasadam and went away to wash their hands. Still, they didn't raise the topic. But the king knew what was happening in their minds. So Janaka Maharaj said, I hope all of your bellies are full and you are all fully satisfied. And they said, yes, very nice prasadam you served us, Maharaj. Thank you so much. He said, I have a question for you. When you were honoring prasadam, can you tell me what you were thinking about? And all of them said, you, my dear Maharaj, if you don't mind us saying so, you have hung a sword over each one of our heads as we were honoring prasadam. All we could think about is, when is that sword going to fall on my head? I better head out of here quickly. So Janak Maharaj said, you see, that's the answer to your question. While you were honoring prasadam, where was your mind? Your mind was on the sword. Similarly, when I am doing my duties, my mind is always dwelling in Krishna. You can do two things at the same time. You can think about Krishna and fight. You can think about Krishna and serve him very nicely. So this knowledge the saintly kings had. They had developed that spiritual maturity where they didn't think it was necessary for them to run away into the forest to focus on Krishna. They could manage both very, very efficiently. That's a very intelligent person, a highly self-realized soul. So Krishna says that very ancient science, now Krishna is defining what is transcendental knowledge, because this chapter title is knowledge, transcendental knowledge. What is this knowledge? That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So Krishna is saying, one, who can understand the science and the relationship between the Jivatma and Paramatma? Only a devotee can understand it. Because it's necessary in the path of spiritual progress to understand some basic concepts like Jivatma, Paramatma, Prakriti, Karma, Kala, etc. So Krishna is defining this knowledge. What's that knowledge? You need to know who you are, you need to know who Paramatma is, and what's the relationship between the two of you. And based on that relationship, you should perform your duty. Arjuna gets a little confused. He's saying, the sun god Vivaswan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand in the beginning you instructed this science to him? Of course, Arjuna knows the answer, but again, he's asking the question for you and me. Because he's thinking, are you not the same age as me? But you have mentioned Vivaswan, who's like 1,000,000 years old. How am I to understand that you instructed this science to him? To which the Lord says, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Krishna says, I have appeared many, many times. Actually, so have you, Arjuna. But I can remember everything. Not only what I did, but what everybody else does in this whole cosmos. I know. I know their thought, I know their feelings, I know their actions. Nobody can escape my notice. Krishna says, although I am unborn, remember Krishna has said, my appearances, right? Krishna doesn't take birth, he appears. When the Lord comes, he comes of his own free will. Birth is for people who have karmic reactions. So we cannot, technically speaking, we cannot use the word birth for the Lord. Birth is as a result of karma. Although I am unborn, Aja, and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. I'm sure most of you know this very famous shloka. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I myself appear millennium after millennium. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. O Arjuna, For the first time, Krishna is saying how you can come back to him, go back to where he lives. Just by knowing that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, just by knowing that the Lord comes to perform his various leelas. At the time of death, Krishna says, if you know that I am Krishna, you can come back to me. But to do that, there are some qualifications. What are those qualifications you have to have? Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger. First, Krishna saying, purify yourself of all this garbage. And then being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. Krishna is telling you how to fall in love with him. So much so you can never ever forget him. Not even for a single second. How? First you have to give up certain things. Attachment, fear, and anger. Next, by giving these up, something else has to substitute it, right? You can't be feelingless. If you give up negative feelings, that means positive feelings are also arising in you. How is that? By taking shelter of Krishna. And then Krishna says, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. So if you surrender to Krishna 10%, he'll reciprocate with you 10%. If you surrender to him 50%, you will see 50% reciprocation from Krishna. If you're completely surrendered to Krishna, then Krishna has your name in his book and he's thinking of you every day. So now we'll come back to the PPT. Krishna is talking about where does this eternal knowledge of the science of the super soul's relationship with the Jivatma come from? It comes from the Lord. In disciplic succession, this is called the Guru Parampara. Krishna taught Vivaswan, in turn Manu, in turn Ikshvaku, and it's come in that Guru Parampara. Who can get this knowledge? Krishna says, my devotees and my friends. Only they can understand this. Other people are too busy doing other things. We'll not worry about it. Who should receive this knowledge? Also devotees and friends. All knowledge originates in Krishna. So, there are 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. We'll go over those 4 as it's listed here in this particular shloka from the Padma Purana. It says, any mantra that does not come in disciplic succession is considered to be fruitless. This is a warning for us. Any mantra that we chant must come in that disciplic succession. It cannot just be plucked out of somewhere and you just decide to chant it simply because you think it's going to be yielding good results for you. Therefore, 4 divine individuals will appear in the age of Kali to found disciplic schools. The founders of these 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas are Lakshmi, Brahma, Rudra, and Sanaka Rishi. And the Acharyas of the Kali age who follow their lines will appear in the holy city of Purushottama in Orissa. So there are 4 Sampradayas, one originating from Lakshmi Devi. This is called the Sri Sampradaya, and the Acharya for the Sri Sampradaya is Ramanujacharya. So this is called the Sri Vaishnava Parampara. Then you have the lineage coming from Lord Brahma, who established the worship of Lord Vishnu. This is called the Brahma Sampradaya. And ISKCON as an institution genealogically falls under Lord Brahma. The Acharya for this is Madhvacharya. So we are one of the, branches of Madhvacharya. So we are called the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Gaudiya means we are worshippers of Srimati Radharani and Krishna together as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya. Rudra Sampradaya, worship of Lord Vishnu established by Lord Shiva himself, is called the Rudra Sampradaya, and the Acharya for this is Vishnu Swami. And then the four sons, the Brahmachari sons of Brahma, called the Sanaka Rishihi, Sanat Kumaras, they are called. They also establish Vishnu worship, and their Acharya is called Nimbarka Acharya. So these are the four Acharyas who established worship of Lord Vishnu as the primary form of worship in the Kali Yuga. Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbarkacharya, which is mentioned in this particular shloka. You can see Madhvacharya's name here. You can see Sri Vishnu Swami's name here, Nimbadityam. Yes, Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya. Parampara system. What does this mean? How do you know that the certificate that you're getting from a university, whether it is a deemed university or an independent university, is it under the guidance of the government? Is it operating outside the government? Even in mundane life, we worry about the validity of certificates of education. Shouldn't we not have that same level of care for spiritual knowledge? Should we not know what's the legitimacy of the institution under which we are trying to study scriptures? So, just as much as parents care about the quality of the school, the quality of the teachers, the type of certificate that you get, the type of education that is gotten on a material level, there should be even more importance paid to the parampara system when you're studying spiritual scriptures. It has to be in the parampara system. So anybody studying the scriptures need to do it under the guidance of a bona fide parampara. It should not be done independently. If we cannot get a mathematics degree without the help of a teacher, how do you think we're going to get Krishna without the help of an acharya, some legitimate acharya? So as we said, ISKCON falls under the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Parampara, and Srila Prabhupada has very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita itself has listed the Parampara system. So you can see Prabhupada's name as the 32nd name coming in this Parampara. So this lineage must be very clear. So you know this is authentic. And you need not worry about this is some kind of fake teaching. Why is Parampara important? One, it preserves the teachings as it is. It preserves the mood of that particular parampara as well. So different Vishnu paramparas also have different moods. Madhvacharya had a different mood, Ramanujacharya had a different mood. So they were all worshipping Lord Vishnu in different moods. So that original mood is also preserved. The purpose for which that lineage was set up is also preserved. Most importantly, none of us should have motivations to interpret Shastra any which way we want. That's why I was mentioning earlier, any commentary that we read should be commentary from the self-realized souls. We should not read anybody else's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. It's very, very dangerous because they may be personally motivated. I know a couple of people who talk about the Bhagavad Gita, but they're doing it to make money. And therefore they come up with whatever interpretations they fancy most. So we have to be very careful while approaching the scriptures that you study under the bona fide parampara. Next, transparent via media. I think I took the example of a postmaster. What does a postman do? He picks up the message and he delivers the message. He doesn't open the envelope and try to edit the message before he delivers it. That is the role of parampara and guru. Transparent, whatever Krishna meant to give us as instructions, those same instructions come to us in a very transparent way. Then, of course, if you're following a parampara, then it's easy for you to learn and also follow the practices and then teach. Sometimes what happens is that many people come from other Vaishnava parampara and then they enter ISKCON and they have a little confusion. Okay, which one should we follow? It should be any one. You can't be following all 4 paramparas simultaneously. You'll get too confused because the mood and the purpose will be different. Even though the worship of the Lord is the same, the rasa may be different. So even there we have to exercise caution. What is attracting us? Which institution is taking us closer to Krishna? That's the institution that you should stay with so that you can make progress. See, ultimately, it doesn't matter which Vaishnava parampara you follow. As long as you know you are making spiritual progress. As long as you know you are being guided to make spiritual progress and not to stagnate after some time. So that parampara and the ecosystem of that parampara must be pushing you to do more, to make further progress in spirituality. That's ideal. What is this knowledge about? This transcendental knowledge is about who am I, who is God, why is he considered God, and by the way, what's my relationship with him? Why should I pay attention to God? Well, because I have a relationship with him. So this is the definition of transcendental knowledge. Jivatma is the eternal servant of Paramatma. So if you are the servant and Krishna is your supreme master, then Prabhupada says we are not here to compete with our master. We are here to cooperate. How do you cooperate with the Lord's desires? Is to simply follow his instructions or follow the parampara instructions. We are not here to compete with God. We are here to cooperate. So what's the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma? Well, Krishna has already said, he has appeared many times. We have also taken birth many times. He remembers everything. We remember hardly anything. His activities are transcendental. Ours are not. And what do you get as a result of knowing who Krishna is and the fact that he comes to perform his leelas? Well, Krishna says you don't have to take birth again if you know this. So what's the difference between Krishna and the living entity? Krishna is eternal. He remembers. Jivatma is also eternal, but he forgets. Krishna appears by his own free will. We are forced to take birth because of our past karma. Krishna always appears in his spiritual body. Because of our karma, we always appear in our material body, which is Asat, Achit, and Nirananda. For Krishna, there is no difference between his body and his self. It's all one and the same. Whereas there is a clear distinction between the spirit soul and the external body. Krishna remembers all his births, we forget. Why do we forget? Because we keep changing our bodies. Why does Krishna come? Well, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religion and a predominant rise in irreligion, Krishna says, I have to come. And he comes of his own free will. Why? To annihilate the demons, to deliver the devotees, to re-establish the principles of religion. To deliver the devotees is the first reason that the Lord gives. Annihilate the demons, he could kill anybody from anywhere. He doesn't have to come down personally to kill anybody. He can also send his great representatives to re-establish religion. He does not come even for that. He comes to please his devotees, to give them an opportunity to serve him and engage in his pastimes. So Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. So this is the benefits of knowing who Krishna is, which is you don't have to. Naiti mameti sorjana, you don't have to come back. I think somebody asked, no, what's the guarantee that if you go to the spiritual world, you'll not make the same mistake and come back again? Krishna is saying here, you will not come back. You'll come to my abode. So, do all paths lead to the same destination? And then, of course, Krishna will talk about Varna, and actually he talks about Varna and less so about Ashrama in this particular chapter. So the Lord reciprocates according to our consciousness. Ye yathamam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyaf partha sarvashah. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Krishna is saying, if you fall in love with me, I also fall in love with you. I always love you, but I love you even more when you express your love towards me constantly. Coming back to the yoga ladder. Different paths lead to different destinations. So what happens if you are practicing a practitioner, if you're a karmi? When we use the word karmi, means you are trying to satisfy your material desires. That's very nice. But after you've had to satisfy your material desires, you have to take birth again because you still have so many more desires that were not satisfied. And therefore you have to come back and take birth again. What about Gyanis? Gyanis are reading the scriptures in order to achieve Brahman realization. But even Brahman realization may not be permanent, because at best they will stay outside the spiritual world in the Brahma Jyoti. They don't actually enter into the spiritual planet. Yogis, why do they practice this Hatha Yoga, Kriya Yoga, etc.? Although they are meditating on Paramatma, but along the way, what happens is they acquire so many mystic powers like creation, destruction, etc. They become quite powerful. And when you become powerful, it's easy to forget Krishna because you think, look at me. I have the power to read minds. I have the power to change another person's trajectory. I have the power to create out of thin air. I can make a gold chain and give it to somebody. And they think, wow, he is God. Well, these are actually yogis. They have these ashtasiddhis. And therefore, it seems like they're performing all kinds of magic. So along the way of getting these mystic powers, they may forget Krishna. So again, there's nothing permanent there. Whereas the devotees, because they're always thinking of Krishna, Krishna is like, yeah, I'm ready for you. Please let me know. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready. We can have nice leelas again in the spiritual world. So the only permanent result of in the yoga ladder is for a bhakta. It'll become clearer what we mean by this when we come to the 6th chapter. The last 3 shlokas of the 6th chapter will make it clear. But let's get into Varnashrama a little bit here. Krishna says, Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashah tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. According to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of the system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. Krishna says, I have created Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra for a particular reason. So technically, caste system, especially in India, and as it may be practiced in different countries as class systems, is highly misunderstood. It is not about a higher class exploiting a lower class. Again, it comes back to that concept, not of competition, but of cooperation among these 4 varnas. If the 4 varnas cooperate very nicely, which means all four varnas should work in such a way they are trying to please Krishna. If all four varnas are trying to please Krishna, then through that cooperation, all of them can go back to the spiritual world. But what happens is that when you acquire some power or acquire more intelligence or whatever it is, more wealth, we have a tendency to exploit those who don't have it. But the Varnashrama system was not created for exploitation. It was created so that we could all cooperate with each other and please the Lord. Krishna says this Varna is not by birth. For example, if a doctor has a son, the son doesn't automatically become a doctor, right? So just like the doctor had to work hard to qualify himself, to study for so many years, to be certified as a doctor before he could actually open his own practice or practice medicine, the son has to go through that same process. So in prior ages, what used to happen is that if you were born into a Brahmana family, you were automatically taught the Vedic scriptures. There was no question of you trying to do something else. If you are born into a Kshatriya family, then you were taught warfare because that's what is your lineage. So in today's Kali Yuga, we cannot call ourselves a Brahmana or a Kshatriya because we're not even doing what Brahmanas are supposed to do, or Kshatriyas are supposed to do, or Vaishyas are supposed to do. So Prabhupada says most of us are working for somebody else. For 99% of us are actually living like Shudras, with the exception of devotees who are studying the scriptures, of course. We are considered not even Brahmanas, we are considered higher than Brahmanas, which is devotees of the Lord. So if you consider yourself a Brahmana, then you should be practicing. Brahman means somebody who is self-realized, who understands who Brahman is. So without any understanding of scriptures, how can I call myself that my Varna is Brahmana? Krishna says you have to qualify yourself. Otherwise, we cannot use all these labels just very lightly. Labels have a meaning. It is based on accreditation process. So you have to accreditate yourself as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya. You can't just use those titles in an empty manner, in a flippant manner. Then we come to the interesting topic of karma. Krishna defines 3 words here, and we'll get into those words and then we'll talk about the cycle of karma. Krishna says, Kim karma karmeti kavayopyatra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshyami yajñatva mokshase shubhat. In 2 successive shlokas, Krishna says karma is a very difficult topic to understand. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. I don't think the next shloka is there, so I will just pull it up so you can see it. So in the 17th shloka, Krishna says, Karmano hyapi bodhavyam, bodhavyam cha vikarmanah, akarmanascha bodhavyam, gahana karmano gatihi. Again, Krishna says the intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. So that's what we're going to talk about now. For those of you who attended my Secrets of Gita Reveal program, you will already know this. But I see quite a few new names here, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with this topic. So for the sake of those who may not know, I'll just quickly cover this and then we'll talk about karma in a little bit more detail. Krishna has defined 3 terms, karma, akarma, and vikarma. Karma means pious activities, all the good deeds that you're doing as per the scriptures. So if you do pious activities, you'll get pious results. If you do impious activities, you'll get impious results. So the exact opposite of karma is vikarma. Vikarma means you are violating all the scriptures with total disregard or out of total ignorance, and therefore all you are accumulating is impious results, which is papa. So, two sides of the coin are punya and papa, karma, vikarma. The whole system of actions and reactions is also called karma. So, if you do a lot of pious activities, one such pious activities is cooking food and taking it to the poor. It's a pious act, but it gives you temporary result. It gives you temporary happiness. So similarly, vikarma traps you in the cycle of vicious, sinful acts, and it puts you on the path of suffering. Now, in reality, all of us are doing both. Maybe most of us are doing more of pious and less of impious, but definitely there is a mixture of both in our lives. So then, what is akarma? So Krishna defines akarma as devotional activities that are done to please the Lord and not done for any material desires or gains. And when you practice devotional service, you enjoy transcendental happiness. And Krishna calls this akarma, which means if you are a devotee of Krishna, even though you may not be perfect, still you avoid both papa and punya. So this is called sukriti. So let's look at it in a table format. So what is akarma? Akarma is all of your activities that you do are done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So you may ask, okay, if I get into my car, drive to work, go clock in, clock out, get a paycheck, am I acting for Krishna? Yes, if you're performing devotional service, yes. What is your attitude as you're doing that? You are going to earn a paycheck, but you're not attached to that paycheck. You know you need that paycheck to meet your basic requirements, and you use a portion of your paycheck to serve the Lord and serve his devotees. Is that a karma? Oh, yes. Absolutely, that is a karma. Because you don't have a desire to selfishly only satisfy your own senses. You're always thinking, what will please Krishna? Maybe I can offer a garland for Krishna this Vaikuntha Ekadasi. Maybe I can sponsor Giridhari's dress. Maybe I can do Annadan in the temple. Maybe I can do Go Seva in the temple. All of this is a karma. So you are not going to get punya for all these activities. You are thinking, oh, if I'm not going to get punya, why should I do it? Oh, you will get something better than punya. You will get what is called sukriti. Sukriti is a kind of account that you can never ever deduct from. It actually multiplies on its own. Sukriti pleases the Lord. Sukriti also pleases you. What is karma? When you go to work and earn a paycheck and you're thinking, my God, if I just get that pay raise, I'm going to go on a vacation. Yes, that is karma. But at the same time, the things that you do under the bracket of karma, as long as you're aware of it, should not violate the Shastras. Therefore, if you don't violate the Shastras, it will give you good results. If you violate the Shastras, it will give you bad results. That is vikarma. That means both in karma and vikarma, you are working with attachment. In akarma, you are working with detachment because your only concern is what I am doing pleasing Krishna? If the answer is yes, 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 that is akarma. So I will come to the topic of karma and how it actually works, because this next section is going to talk about the importance of Guru, and how one can approach a Guru and what should be the mood in which to approach a Guru. Before we do that, let's just quickly look at karma. As I said, karma means actions, reactions, and the system of actions and reactions. Karma also means pious activities. And we know we have papa and punya, and then one more word that we introduced to you today was sukriti. So every jivatma is maintaining two accounts. You know, some unscrupulous people maintain two books of business, one for the government, one for themselves. So Krishna is maintaining two books for you. One is your material account, one is your spiritual account. If you are focused on your material account, then you have to keep taking birth and death. You'll go through that cycle again. Krishna is waiting for you to increase your spiritual balance. We are happily waiting to increase our material balance. But very nicely, Krishna has given us a simple solution in this chapter. It began in chapter 3 with work for me. In chapter 4, he says, well, if you try to remember me all the time and do things to please me, then you'll come back to me. So that means karmic reactions are in our hands. Sometimes out of our ignorance or out of not knowing, we have a tendency to blame the Lord or blame others for karmic reactions that we experience in this life and that we have experienced in so many other lives as well. So let's use a water tank analogy to explain this. Let us say there is a big water tank. There is one pipe that is depositing water. There is another pipe that can withdraw the water. So that means there is an inlet pipe and then there is an outlet pipe. Now, how is that water tank getting deposited with water? These are your desires. So when you have desires, you perform activities to fulfill those desires. And every time you fulfill those desires, that material tank has two sections, papa and punya. So constantly your inlet pipe is depositing papa and punya into that material tank. And it is storing it, storing it, storing it, storing it. That tank never overflows. As many births as you have, the tank will just keep expanding, expanding, expanding to store all your karmic reactions. That tank is called Sanchipta Karma. That's your overall balance. Both positive and negative is sitting there. Now, what is the function of the outlet pipe? So that means the inlet pipe you control. You control with your desires, your, I don't know, whatever else is there in your mind. You want to do this, you want to do that. So many things that take us away from Krishna. I'm talking about those kind of desires. So that means the Jivatma controls the inlet pipe. You dictate what is being deposited there, both positive and negative, on the material front. Outlet pipe is controlled by Krishna. You see, whatever you deposit there in one life, you can't withdraw all of it. So Krishna controls the outlet pipe. That outlet pipe is your withdrawal. That is called prarabdha karma, which you and I are experiencing in this life, in this body. So the tank overall bank account or the tank is Sanchikta Karma. That's your sum total balance that you have left. In this life, you've withdrawn a small amount. Little withdrawal on Papa, little withdrawal on Punya. Now, the ratio with which it is coming, we don't know. That's not in our control, that the Lord decides. So, literally, we are deciding our own future right now by our activities. So, the inlet pipe is your past karma that is already sitting in the tank. And in this life, you're depositing some more. And in future life, at the time of death, you have so many more unfulfilled desires. You have to take birth again just so you can deposit in the tank again. So this outlet pipe is called the karma phala. It gets opened when you take birth. And that rate of withdrawal is constant, although the quantum of withdrawal we don't control. So that means in that tank, the water level is going up, 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 up with every birth. Now, then comes a very simple question. How do we get rid of water in this tank if I can't control the outlet pipe? What if I want to just flood it all out and empty it in one shot? That's where akarma comes into the picture. When you worship the Supreme Lord Krishna, you're performing Sukriti. Krishna can completely drain that tank for you in one lifetime. You can't do it, but the Lord can do it. So that means even prarabdha karma can be changed by bhakti to Krishna. Krishna can change your destiny. When you perform Sukriti, you know what Krishna is doing? He's evaporated that water in the tank. But at the same time, Krishna can also change what you're currently experiencing. As long as you're a sincere devotee. So, this is in human life. What if you take birth next life as an animal? Guess what? The inlet pipe is shut off in the next birth because there's no karma if you're in an animal body. Isn't that nice? So if you're not in the body of a human being, that inlet pipe is shut off because karma only applies to human beings. So you're thinking, okay, if I have an animal body, that tank is full. What next? You'll keep taking animal births, animal births, animal births, animal births. Unless, of course, you've come in contact with a devotee as an animal, then that could change your trajectory. Or if you've come into contact with the Lord, that could change your trajectory. When the tank is almost empty, you're ready to take a human birth. So in animal life, the inlet pipe is shut off. The outlet pipe is still functioning. That means only in human life is there an opportunity for moksha. There are exceptions. So, so let us say you've performed so many pious activities. What happens in your next birth? You withdraw a portion of that and you'll go to enjoy yourself in the heavenly planets. Similarly, if you've performed so many impious activities, you'll withdraw a portion of that and you'll go to lower planetary systems and lower species of life. So you may go into plant life, animal life, until you are ready to come to human life. Imagine when the tank is almost empty, you take a human form, and what do you do the minute you become a human? Start depositing in the tank again. So essentially, our desires control this tank. So, what is this concept of moksha? You stop the inlet pipe, but the outlet pipe is open and draining all the water. So, being desireless is not possible because we will always carry desires. But Srila Prabhupada explains very nicely in many, many purports, we have to develop the desire to love Krishna, and then you're back home to Godhead. So, this is the essence of karma for those who are curious about how karma works. So, let's go to the rest of the slides, which are very important for us. This is Guru Parampara system. In this particular shloka, Krishna is saying, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninastatvadarshinaha. Actually, I have a couple of pastimes on karma. So I'll come back to this shloka in just a second. There's a very young student by the name of Prasadra. This is from our scriptures. He was given the duty of protecting cows. And he was living in the ashram of Vashishta Muni. So his guru was Vashishta. What was his job? Protect the cows. So he is given the necessary tools to learn how to protect the cow. One day it was midnight, and he hears a tiger prowling around. Tiger around cows, not a good sign. The tiger is in search of food. So he is holding a sword or a stick in his hand. It's thundering and lightning. He cannot see the tiger, nor can he see the cows, but his job is to protect the cows. So there's a flash of lightning, and he instinctively takes his sword and he is going to kill the tiger, but in the dark he doesn't realize it's the cow, and he ends up killing the cow instead of the tiger. Naturally, Vashishta Muni was very, very upset with his student. Cow killing is the most abominable act. So the guru curses him and says, may you become a Shudra in your next life because you don't understand Vedic culture. So this young student ponders that he's been cursed by his own spiritual master. What should he do? So he leaves the ashram and begins to practice bhakti yoga. And in that same life, he goes back to the spiritual world. So, which means his prarabdha karma in the next life would have been to go into a lower birth. But because he took advantage of the knowledge that bhakti yoga can change your prarabdha karma, including your future, he goes back to the spiritual world. Similarly, there is a pastime about, when Agastya Muni wants to build a temple in Kalahasti. He wants to build a temple, but he doesn't have the resources. So he calls upon Bharadwaj Muni and Vashishta Muni to help him in this process. And they do. They bring the resources. And after the temple is constructed, they say, okay, so now I have to reward all these workers very nicely for the seva that they've done. So they ask all the workers to stand in line to accept their pay for services. So what happens is that all the workers line up and they are asked to extend their hands. And when that happens, and they would give each of them sand in their hands, in the cupped hands. So for some of the workers, the sand would turn into gold. Some of the workers, it would remain as sand, etc. So obviously this was very puzzling. So the question was why? Why differential treatment for different workers? It is based on the sincerity with which they did their services. So productivity determined, sincerity and productivity determined whether that's sand turned, all of the sand turned into gold, or some of that sand turned into some gold and some sand, and some of that sand, remained as just sand alone. That was determined by their sincerity. So Bhakti Yoga works like this. Externally, all of us are busy with so many different duties and responsibilities. We may be chanting, but how many of us are sincere in our sadhana? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. So it is very important for our intent to be pure, that we want to please Krishna, and out of that desperation we chant very, very nicely. So now coming to the shloka, Krishna is saying, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. What truth? The spiritual science that Krishna has spoken about. The science of the relationship between the Jivatma and the Paramatma, and the role of the Jivatma and the role of Paramatma. Krishna is saying, who can you learn this information from? You have to go to a guru. So just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. So Krishna has said three things. First, approach a guru. Second, listen carefully. Be in a humble mood to learn. Third, you must serve your guru. If you do this, then what will the self-realized souls do for you? They can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So Krishna himself is saying we should approach a guru. If we approach a guru, Krishna says, we will never fall into illusion. We will always do the right thing. The other advantage of approaching a guru, Krishna says, we will cross this ocean of miseries that we are experiencing in this life. Third benefit of having a guru, it will destroy all your sinful reactions, because at the time of Diksha, when the guru gives you the mantra, the guru accepts your karma so that you can begin a new life, a spiritual life. So these are the benefits of accepting a guru, learning from a guru, and applying what he says. So listen, learn, apply. It's important. So Krishna himself had a guru. But Krishna says, you know what? After speaking all of this, I must tell you something. Very few people will do what I'm asking you to do. There are a certain set of people who are ignorant, they don't have faith, they doubt the scriptures, and they will never ever approach it. So let's look at the last few shlokas of this chapter, and then we will conclude today's session. So Krishna is saying, approach a guru, learn from him or her very nicely about all this transcendental knowledge. Remember, we said you have to have knowledge to perform your duties and responsibilities, because without that, how will you do a proper job? So Krishna says, having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Krishna is saying, I don't care how much of a sinner you are. I just want you to get into that boat. of transcendental knowledge. Because once you've gotten into the boat, it doesn't matter how much sins you have, that boat will take you across to the other side. So we shouldn't worry about our past karma, what karma we have performed in this life. Krishna is saying you need not worry about that. What I want you to do is to get into that boat. What is that boat? Approach a guru, get the knowledge that you need to get, and the guru will be the boatsman helping you cross over to the other side. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Remember, Krishna says just knowing that Krishna is Krishna and he's come here to perform his transcendental activities, when you leave this material world, you don't have to come back again. So Krishna is explaining that again. How? This knowledge that Krishna is a supreme Lord and your attraction to him will burn away just like fire burns firewood to ashes. This knowledge and love and attraction for Krishna will wipe out all your karmic reactions. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. And having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. But, ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. So Krishna is saying, have some faith. But if you don't have faith, how are you going to make progress? You're actually going to degrade in consciousness. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. So again, Krishna is talking about Nishkama Karma Yoga. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. Remember, Arjuna said, if I kill, I will not enjoy. If I kill, I have to accept the sin. Krishna is saying, no, you just do your duty as you need to do. There will be no reactions. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Krishna is instructing Arjuna time and time again, stand up and fight. Fight, because that's your duty, that's your dharma. So today's summary is ears, eternal knowledge. This knowledge is Jivatma, Paramatma, and the relationship. Who can actually understand this? What is the Varna system created for? How the four Varnas should cooperate with each other for the purposes of making progress spiritually. What is karma, akarma, and vikarma? Then how do you actually gain this knowledge? Where is this knowledge residing? We said Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Many of us cannot even touch the Shastras because we don't read Sanskrit. There may be nice translations, but we don't know if those are legitimate translations. Is a translation coming in the Guru Parampara? We don't know. Sadhus is nice. You can go to a temple and associate with other devotees. Guru is important. That's whom you can surrender to. If you can't surrender to a guru, how are you going to surrender to Krishna? So we have to learn to surrender to Krishna, to Guru first before we can surrender Krishna. Krishna takes you to Guru and Krishna gives you Guru. So Prabhupada has said these are like parallel railway tracks. On one side is Krishna, on the other side is Guru. Without Guru, you cannot get Krishna. Without Krishna, you cannot get Guru. Both go hand in hand, otherwise you cannot make progress. So the single word summary for today is knowledge. This is transcendental knowledge about who is Krishna, who am I, what's my relationship with Krishna. So now, in tomorrow's chapter, Krishna is going to say, what is the benefit of working for him? Peace. So the result of working for Krishna is peace. So tomorrow's chapter is called Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which is now that you know all this knowledge, and all of us have to work, we have to do our karma yoga. How can you do that same karma yoga in chapter 3? But do it with Krishna in the center in chapter 5. Then you will get peace. That'll be the outcome. So do join us tomorrow for our next session on Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which is chapter 5.